Hey everyone, I am here with Tiffany Vaughan today, and my name is Preston Zeller. And we're going to be discussing how Tiffany went from the state of really struggling to find peace after the passing of her brother to finding that increased kind of inner peace, really in a period of 60 days. But before I get too ahead of myself, Tiffany, welcome. Let's just kind of kick this off. And why don't you briefly just introduce yourself and your background?
Hello. Thank you for having me, Preston. This is exciting.
Yeah.
So my name is Tiffany Vaughan, and a bit about me. I'm an accountant by day, but I am also a podcaster and a soul coach. And through my podcast, that's actually how I met Preston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And us meeting, and we'll get into that, was just so kind of serendipitous. Why don't
Very.
we yeah. Why don't we talk about your interest in art for a moment? Like, how long have you been interested in art? Like, what's that been like for you?
I have been interested in art since I was probably about two,
Mm,
or like my earliest memory
yeah.
was um, coloring for one thing. I actually told my mom that I was going to win an international coloring contest when I was about, I don't know, 4 years old. And I had those babies framed in my room, and like they were perfect, like
Mm,
no going outside the lines. So I've always been interested in just the creativeness of myself. And then when I moved out for the first time, I went to one of those home goods stores or whatever, and I was instantly drawn to abstract. I was like, wow, this is so awesome. So that, yeah, when I moved out and could decorate my own house, that was when I actually got into it a bit more.
that's cool. I mean, what do you think makes your relationship with art unique?
Um, I don't like boring pieces. I I like to know that mine is unique and
Mm,
that the story is unique behind it. You can always get those pieces at Home Goods or wherever, right? But
mm.
and that's fine. I have one of those too in my house.
Yeah.
But I know that if it's made specifically for me, then it absolutely has more meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's touch a bit on like what were you doing before we crossed paths? I mean, I know you talked about you have this podcast, you have a coaching business for those in grief. Yeah, explain more? Yeah, what were you doing before?
So I've been doing my podcast, Hard Beautiful Journey, for almost 2 years. I'm just going to be wrapping up season 4. And that actually started out as me just wanting to talk about my hard, beautiful journey. And I honestly didn't know if it was going to go past 5 episodes or if anyone would even listen. And surprisingly, they were. And so I kept going. And now my pillars are around mental health and trauma, addictions, and grief and spirituality. So, and those five really tie together almost every time. So it's been really, I don't know, fulfilling, I think, just knowing that I'm talking with people about part of their story that's really hard, but also has, you know, it just helps them talking about it. So
Mm,
it's been really, really cool. And I'm doing some coaching as well, and that's been good. But I'm also doing that on top of a regular job and being a mom and a wife. So it's been busy.
yeah, and I think like most people who experience a loss and then you get into it in this more like heavy way. It's not just the loss and then you go about your life as it was before, but Is there some sense of like catharsis for you in talking with other people about their losses?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually what has made my grief journey not as, it's been very difficult, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it's been um, also healing in some ways, just getting those emotions out. And I journal a lot. So
Mm.
if I'm ticked, I'll, or sad, I'll write something, and it helps a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so you have multiple kind of creative forms for yourself, the outlets that you're processing through, which is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. I think a lot of people don't, give enough attention to just the, raw creativity you have inside you.
Mm-hmm. Everybody has it.
Yeah.
Everybody does. So I think it's just how you choose to actually honor it
Mm.
and try.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, so where did you first hear about me?
Well, so Instagram, one day I just saw that you started following me. And do you remember? Like, I don't know. I was like, oh, who's this Preston Zeller? So I went on, because I don't get like a ton of followers, okay, people. So I went on and I looked, and instantly, because it said that you do artwork with loved ones remains, I was like, okay, perfect, check. And as I kept going, that's when I noticed your documentary and all of that and what was going into it. And I messaged you like before I hit the bottom of your Instagram account and said I would love to see your documentary and I'd like to have you on my podcast. And I didn't even know you from anybody. And it was so wild. Like I don't know, well, I do know what made me do it, but I just messaged you right away and you sent me your documentary and I watched it that night, right? Like
Yeah.
right
Yeah. You
away.
watched it really quick. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was amazing. And I think I had you on my podcast like a day later. So
Yeah.
it was really, really interesting how um, you were placed into my life at the exact moment I needed it.
Yeah, and it was really as we so I of course I didn't know a ton about your personal journey before we started talking, but I know after you got a chance to see the documentary and the more we started discussing through the podcast and then other conversations, we found out that our brothers had, a very parallel story in many ways. I mean, even down to having their dog that they really cherished and, you know, being
Mm-hmm.
bald basically. Like very interesting
There was a
parallels.
lot of parallels. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was a really cool connection for both of us. And I'm curious, in you had seen my artwork, on the Instagram page, which is one thing, but then you got to see the documentary. How did that kind of like connect the dots for you with, what was possible through doing a painting?
I never, ever would have thought that you can make that large of a piece of artwork on your wall from 8 by 10. Like, come on. It was like the whole time my jaw was just like, what is happening right now? This is going to be massive. And the whole time I actually kept thinking, did they buy that house just for that piece of
Yeah, right.
because it was the perfect wall. And so you going from day one to that final 8 by 10, it was just like, you really can do anything with your creativity, like anything. So it was very inspiring, very inspiring.
Well, that's cool. I'm happy to hear that. I think that's been one of the neatest things to hear is that people realize that there's some bigger source of creativity inside them. And like we were
Mm.
just saying a moment earlier, to tap into that. So you have the painting behind you, right? What, that's like, I guess, the obvious result of us working together, but, walk me through a bit of like what the process was like for you, going through and getting this painting. Tell me about it from your standpoint.
Well, I really like your approach to doing it. I don't know. There's something for me anyway with connecting and talking to people, and rather than just writing out my story. I like writing as well. I'm writing a book. But when I'm actually wanting to convey what I'm looking for, I find it easier to do in a phone call or a Zoom or something. And with you, we had Zoom calls to talk about, my brother and his story and my story with him. And I found that very helpful to, I don't know, just feel like you were really wanting it to be a special piece for him and for me. And they're difficult conversations because for me, it was still pretty raw. It is still pretty raw. It's only been 5 months since he passed away, but you held me in a very safe space. And that was really, really wonderful.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah, I mean, of course, and I've said this before, it's always an honor to be able that you trust me with your story and that we can transform it into something that is, unique to you. How would you characterize, now that, you have the painting, like, I know it's really early, right? But, you had said some really cool stuff about how you had shared it with your family and whatnot. I mean, what areas of your, life would you say have improved?
Well, overall peace, just in general, should I tell the story now that, so I'm not actually in my house right now.
Yeah.
I actually, I'm on a couple of day getaway by myself, and I actually brought the piece with me because I couldn't be away from it. Okay. That's how much I love it. But it also wasn't hung up in my office yet. So it made it easier just to grab it and go. Otherwise, I probably would have left it. But I love it so much. Just seeing just pieces of my brother and his dog in it just gives me like incredible peace.
That's so cool. And you're partially on your getaway too for your business side of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to be doing some branding stuff and trying to write a bit of my book as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I mean, all this is kind of tying, together really well with, all these other plans that you've had. If you can talk to me a little bit about, we're working out use for the artwork to be part of your book, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, as soon as you sent me, because you do these little snippets where you're like little teasers, I'm like, what is going on right now? It is so cool. And then when I actually saw it, I was like that. Yeah, I was like, wow. And I messaged you again. I'm like, I think that's my book cover. And then you sent me a mock up. And I'm like, I think I fell over dead. Actually, I was like, it's perfect. And then maybe a week or two later, I was like, oh no, that's also my podcast cover. So I don't know. It's to me, it represents Hard, Beautiful Journey in so many ways, like so many ways, like with the dark to the light and then the sun. And oh my goodness, like I just can't. So, yeah, just working on figuring out, like making it my book cover and my podcast cover.
Yeah,
Really excited.
so it's cool because in your case you have, of course, there's the personal aspect of it, the deeply personal aspect of it, but then there's this sort of, personal business aspect of it that, you're writing your book, you have your podcast, and your book will come out. And so it's really kind of full circle. And the cool thing is you get to share this deeply personal thing. I mean, you have with your story, but the imagery with your audience.
Yeah, well, the book is about my hard, beautiful journey. It's an extension of my podcast, but a large portion of that book is going to be about my brother. And the through line for the book is basically the value of struggle. And that is basically my life and absolutely his as well. And what we've learned, what I'm learning as I go, right? And trying to help other people with theirs. And so that being the cover of my book and him being a part of that cover is just so beautiful in my opinion. So
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly agree. When you actually brought up wanting to, and I know you had said it before actually the painting was done, like, maybe this could be my book cover, but of course we didn't know what it looked like yet. It's really special for me as well to be able to, do this painting for you, but then, it eventually be turned into sort of, I mean, it's kind of part of your brand really at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, and it just draws you back to that, I think, core mission you have of elevating the, embracing struggle, right? Mm-hmm. That's like kind of one of your, I don't know if that's like one of your pillars of, your brand values kind of thing, but I mean, you talk about that a lot.
My pillar, well, what I want people to know is that when you do use your voice and you do talk about your struggles and you do admit that you need help sometimes, that's when things really start to open up and can improve your life, because I know it firsthand. And I've seen it through so many other people that as soon as you start talking, it definitely releases shame. Just being vulnerable is powerful.
Yeah. I mean, so that you're, a unique case in the sense of like you've embraced this talking it out, which, is as we've discussed, really like counter to what most people, experience, because you experience this trauma in your life, and then we just kind of shove it under the rug and or become very passive about it and thinking it's just going to go away. I know one of the hardest things there though is like family, right? And there's some, I know for me, there's this desire to kind of, yes, I'm helping myself. Hopefully I'm leading by example, but have you noticed that you talking it out has been helpful for like family and friends to like encourage them to do it more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why I know it works. And that's why I know it makes a difference, because I've seen it in my own family and extended family. And it's amazing when you see that crack, which looks like it's going to hurt them, but it actually helps. Where, like, I just posted something on Instagram, like, be willing to be cracked open, because that's when the light gets in. And it was so powerful, and it's true. I've seen it with my own loved ones. It looks like it's going to kill them by actually being vulnerable and opening up and cracking open. And then you see like this weight lift off of their shoulders, and And you can see peace in their face and in their whole body, right?
Mhm.
It's really cool. I've seen it over my Zoom interviews when I'm doing my podcast.
Yeah.
I've seen it when I'm talking to people at work, like where I let them be vulnerable and talk about stuff and they leave feeling way better.
Mm.
So it's important.
Yeah, you're you are truly leading by example in that case, which is great. And I know we've talked about, part of that is just normalizing these conversations of like, we all have stuff we've been through, and what is that? How does that translate into how you can take hold of it, make your life better?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How would you describe the return on investment of working with me and getting this painting?
Return on investment.
Yeah.
Priceless. Okay. Honestly, that is the return on investment. Like that will be with me for the rest of my life. And I can't wait to actually tell people every time they see it what it's about and the different parts, and see if they can see the hidden animals.
Yeah, right. The birds.
The birds. So there's every time I look at it, there's something different. So I know I'll be seeing different things probably for the rest of my life because that's how abstract art works.
Yeah, and that's sort of, when I'm talking with people who are like considering getting this done, you already had this sort of innate love for abstract art. But because some people will be like, I want, a portrait of my family or something like this. But it doesn't, it's the way I describe it is more like a time capsule, and abstract is different, right? And you were just kind of hitting on that. How would you characterize abstract, especially for this kind of purpose, as compared to something that's very traditional and like representational?
I know that there's really good portrait artists out there.
Yeah.
I've seen their work. But I truly don't feel that somebody would have captured my brother in a portrait the way that I know him and remember him. But in an abstract piece like this, there's so many different elements of him in there that you and I know about that every time I see those pieces, it's like, there he is. There he is. Or like a part of his life at a certain time. And so that has a lot more meaning to me than somebody's interpretation of my brother's face, maybe.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So, of course, this, I'll just explain for people listening that when I first share this painting, of course, like we go through this discovery process, and, I learn kind of as much as I can about your life and your relationship with the person. So your relationship with Cory, and, I have a certain amount of symbolism that I've attributed to the way I approached it. But then what was interesting is, right, pretty much right away, you started finding all these things that were just, your own findings, right? Your own discoveries in the abstract art. Is that kind of just continued to happen for you?
Oh yeah. Every day, I walk by it, or where it normally is in my office, the sun shines on it. So depending on the time of day, it could show something else. There's different parts of the painting where his ashes are. So there's some there too. Oh, cool. So yeah, it's been every day it shows something a little bit different. And I think it's depending on my mood or what I'm going through that day, or that's what's really neat about it.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's encouraging to hear too, because you're just gonna, the part of the whole idea is in 5 years, 10 years, you will look at it in a different state of mind. You're gonna go, huh.
Mm-hmm. Didn't see that 5 years ago.
Right. Well, so the bird thing is kind of funny because I was pointing out some other bird and you're like, there's a bird here and there's something else. And I'm like, I'm having actually one of them I saw, the other one I was having trouble seeing. But that's what's so interesting is you're kind of just, your brain is just processing the, colors and stuff in a certain way.
Yep, absolutely. And like to me, there's like water in there, where my brother, like I took his ashes to the ocean. So like that was so significant to me. Like I actually sometimes feel like I'm in that painting, in that ocean, putting his ashes in the ocean. So yeah. And the yellow part, on the white, every time I see that, like that's what usually gets me teared up, and my sister as well, because he, after he passed away, he likes to show up on really cloudy, rainy days, but like blast the sun ray right onto our faces. And so as soon as you asked for another color, because we had come up with blue, black, and whites, and like we need one more color maybe. And so I phoned my sister and immediately she was like, yellow for the sun. And I was like, yep, that's it. So you putting that on there, and like as soon as she saw it too, she started bawling. So it's very special.
Yeah, and tell me about that a little bit. I mean, because of course by this point you'd been telling about your family, like, hey, I'm getting this painting made for Cory, and then you finally get it and you get to show it to them. What was their reaction like?
Bawling. Yeah, I sent them those sneak peeks that you sent me. So they had an idea of the colors and all of that. But when I FaceTimed them to show them the details and to walk through the meaning behind the different areas, there was a lot of tears.
Yeah.
A lot of tears. Yeah. They love it.
That's really cool. And again, it's this thing that, hopefully whenever they come into your house, they get to see it, or if they get a print, they'll have that in their house as well. But it's more shareable than some things, right?
Yep.
Certainly, this is part of the point, is transforming what was in a container in terms of ashes into something that, you can share,
Yep.
Yeah.
See every day.
Yeah, exactly. And yours is in your office. So, which I find is actually a pretty common place that people want to put these kinds of paintings, because it is, it's a reminder for you, right? It's kind of like a source of motivation.
Well, but where mine normally is, and that's where I do my podcast, is in my office. And so where you can see it is actually when I'm doing my podcast, every guest could see it. So, and I can see it obviously. And so it's just a good reminder as I'm doing my podcast, talking about people's hard, beautiful journeys, that it's right there, and a reminder that honor my own hard, beautiful journey and theirs as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So would you recommend others work with me, Tiffany?
Yes, Preston. Absolutely. I, for various reasons, but one of them, just so you know, too, that was very important, is the actual ashes getting to you. Like that was not easy to do, opening that urn and getting those ashes ready to send to you, and trusting that they would get there. And, even in that aspect, you were very thorough and always making sure that you were on, keeping track of them like I was. And the second they got there, you let me know, because that's a part of me, right? That's my brother. And so it was a little nerve-wracking for a bit, but once he was there with you, it was like, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what he comes up with. So no, absolutely highly recommend this process with Preston.
Well, thank you. And who do you think I'm a good fit for?
Well, everyone, because everybody that I talk to about this, they're like, that is so cool. I would love to do that, have that done for me. So, and the people that I've told, like, it's a variety of people. So I don't even think that you can nail it down. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anybody that wants to honor their loved one and see them every day.
Yeah. No, that's good. Why should someone listening take action right now? I mean, people, they lose someone and they're kind of, oftentimes people are kind of floundering. Why do you think someone should take action right now?
Because it's the whole process of, like, even just like I said, talking about your loved one and expressing how much they meant to you and mean to you, and just the whole process that you go through the person with is very cathartic, and it honestly gave me a lot of peace. Like I said, I'm writing my book, so it actually, I told you as we were talking, I'm like, this is really good for my book.
Yeah.
This is really good stuff for my book. So I don't know, it may even spark some creativity in other people, right? To realize that they have something inside of them too, just from talking about their loved one. And I know that my brother works in really cool ways, and this is how he was doing it with me. And I really have a strong feeling that both of our brothers got together and, had a chat, said these two need to meet.
Yeah, very serendipitous that has been, for sure.
Yeah.
So you talk to people. I love to ask people this question, and you're going to have a more probably insightful take on this because you talk about it so much. But what's your number one piece of advice for people who are going through grief right now?
Honor it. Can I give a quick example?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was supposed to interview a guest the day after my brother's 4-month anniversary of his passing. And I woke up that morning and it was just a very hard morning. There was all the emotions there. And I actually emailed her and said, I lied. And I said, my kids are sick. And one of them is sick and I have to go and get them. Can we reschedule? And I went back to my room and I laid in the bed and I actually felt and heard my brother say, like, honor your grief. Honor your grief. And so by honoring my grief, I actually emailed her back and told her the truth. And I was honest. And she had lost her mom. So she understood completely and was very compassionate. But that was a big lesson for me in the 5 months since he's been gone, is honor it. When it comes, let it come, and just don't hide it. Don't think that there's a time frame of getting over it, because you don't. I think you're the one who said you just move through it. And that's all you can do, is just move through it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I think there's, even as much as we acknowledge it and engage with it like you have, right? There's still times where you feel like, I don't want to feel this drained all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's intense. It can be very intense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much. Where can people find out about you and your podcast and your coaching services online?
I can be found. My podcast is at hardbeautifuljourney.com. And that's where all of my episodes and blog about every episode is on there. And there will be actually merchandise and events that we are planning in honor of my brother. We're starting a foundation in his name. And then my coaching website is mstiffvaughan.com.
We'll put that in the show notes too. So
thank you.
It took me a few times to get typing your last name correctly.
Yes, it's Vaughan.
Yeah, the silent A for some reason.
I don't know why it's there.
Well, very cool. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Stick around for a moment after, but I appreciate everyone listening if you've gotten this far. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm looking forward to just seeing everything that you do with your book, and of course, hearing back from you over time about sharing the painting. So, thanks everyone.
You.